Doctors of Reddit, what is it like when you go to the doctors? I go in with my 1 to 2 complaints, succinctly give them the details that are relevant, answer their questions as able, and take their advice on testing, and follow through with the testing and treatment they advise. If I feel it is off the mark or I wish to have other testing done, I ask about it and see if it is appropriate. While only I know my normal best, my doctor is an expert. I seek out for guidance and help, and I value their advice and ideas. No doctor should treat themselves by themselves. I hate going to the doctors, but that's probably my own issues with regards to control. That is the issue. But whenever I go to the doctors, I really prefer that they not know I'm a physician. I get a clearer explanation, and I find that there are assumptions made if they find out I work in the operating room, and there is a joke that the most complications happen to doctors' wives and VIPs because you do things outside your normal safe practice to try and accommodate. All I want from a doctor is to be treated like everyone else, because I know that means I'll get their best. It depends. It has its good and bad points. My original family medicine guy took a hands-off approach to management. Physical exam and labs. It seems like he simply trusted me to do the right thing. But I kinda felt like we were going through the bare bones motions to get my employee health points. The relationship fell apart when I injured my hand and went to see him. He was like, "It's just a sprain." I sit down. Nose ray. I didn't believe him. Argued it and felt a bit dismissed in the end. So I pulled strings and got him's ray. The hand was broken badly. I fired him as my personal physician for that one, because who knows how long he would have kept letting me work with my injury. New doctor is tough on me and actually makes me answer to him regarding my lab results, cholesterol, sugars, ECT. Close bracket. Definitely a no bullshit, no excuses approach, which physician patients are good at giving. I think I would rather have a physician that isn't afraid to treat another physician than a wimpy doc that lets you get away with things, is hands off, and is too trusting. Edit. I have gotten a bunch of replies on the same thing. I apologize, since I typed the original story on a phone and tried to keep it shorter than it turned out. Clarification. I fired the original physician as my doctor and transferred my medical care to another doctor within my system. The doctor that made the error is still working, is young and has a long career ahead of him. I'm sure he knows about the mistake. He got the transfer notification. Plus, physicians talk and errors are a favorite topic of scorn/put downs. Hopefully, next time he just orders the X-ray up front instead of the "let's see if it gets better" routine. Let's just leave it at that. Everyone is human and the possibility of making a mistake is always there. I face this issue in my own practice every time I step into the hospital. The visits are usually pretty short and self-directed. If I'm worried enough about something to ask for a test or lab, they'll usually order it out of courtesy when I'm there with a family member or one of my kids. It is often just to bounce ideas off another doc to make sure I'm not over or underreacting. As an EMT who had to be treated by EMTs in a different state, I kept thinking, oh god, this all seems so wrong. They are not following the standard operating procedures of my department. I can't tell if they are doing things the right way, but I tried to bite my tongue and let them do their jobs unless they tried to do something that I knew was going to harm me. There were a few times where I thought they should have examined/asked about this, so I made sure to bring up their information. I've also been on the other side, treating medical professionals as an EMT. Things generally go a lot more smoothly because they know all the relevant information. They know when to say it. They know how to say it, specific medical terminology, and they tend to keep calm. A regular person might say, "I fell and it hurts." But a medical professional might say, "I inverted my right ankle, felt a pop, and noticed immediate swelling and contusions. I have bone tenderness at the proximal base of the 5th metatarsal." Saves a ton of time. It's like anyone else. I usually don't tell the entire truth and I always forget what questions I wanted to ask. The only benefit is that I don't have to wait long in the waiting room because they know me and bring me right back. Still have a copay. just means you can actually read the prescription. As a child of one, it is very annoying. I'm sure my appointments would take twice as long as everybody else's because my mom knew the doctors personally and would talk about the good old days of medical school or recent studies. I swear the doctor forgot I was in the room a few times when they got deep into conversation. For real. I just walk to the other side of the hall and shoot the shit with my friend. It's a legitimately enjoyable break in my day. Edit. This is applicable to my PCP. And I'm a generally healthy guy except for one big thing. I was born with half a heart. And have had a number of surgeries to get me to a stable point. I see my cardiologist far more often. This is usually fine too unless something is going wrong. He's a great guy, but it feels a bit more clinical. That said, I know he appreciates that I understand my condition and physiology very well, and he can speak in jargon and I'll understand perfectly. For some reason it never occurred to me that doctors go to the doctors and dentists go to the dentist. Wow, am I dumb? But who shaves the barber? Remember, if there's two barbers in town and one has good looking hair and the other's is a disaster, you want the one who looks like a disaster to do your hair. Can they eat apples? Or would they disappear? Another day in the office. I'm an optometrist. I avoid mentioning I'm a doctor when I'm at the doctor because I'm pretty low on the totem pole of prestige. Optometry school, while challenging, isn't at the same level as medical school. I enjoy having the title. It just feels like a reach to portray myself as having gone through the same grueling life to get here. However, when it does come up, it's never been a pissing contest or who do you think you are conversation. It's been very pleasant. IDK. Some sort of imposter syndrome, I guess. I went in on a Monday and colleague asked me how I was. Not great, I'm having this embarrassing place pain. Oh really, he replied. Yeah, do have any slots open this afternoon? No, why? He asked. I need to be seen. You for what? He asks. I just told you that pain. Oh god, I'm so sorry, I thought you were joking. I'm so sorry. Let's talk in the exam room. Needless to say, it can be interesting. And I understand why he thought I was joking. Obligatory, not a doctor. But, insert Spider-Man pointing at Spider-Man meme. My boyfriend is a doctor. An end surgeon at that. I've seen him septic on the brink of death and he would not go to the doctor. Surprisingly, some doctors are great at taking care of other people, but not great at taking care of themselves. I'm boarded in family medicine and my wife is a physician assistant. I own both my own practice and have a position as an employed physician. I guess you could say I'm technically my own doctor, but that's only true in the sense of the insight I have into my own health and what warrants follow-up. I have been fortunate in that I have never needed a specialist. In all practicality, my actual doctor is my former junior resident from residency. I trust her and bounce anything concerning off of her and take her advice. I have many close friends in medicine, and thus most of my interactions with other doctors is informal, but intensely respectful. I always approach colleagues formally and am invited to an informal relationship which I reciprocate. I respect their time, their career, and don't go in with too many expectations. I generally practice with the ethos that less is more, and thus I don't expect unnecessary workups. I'm just fortunate that my access is streamlined. I have not found caring for other physicians is too difficult. What is difficult is caring for their family who can act entitled, or are sometimes very much mismanaged by their spouse in terms of care. It's difficult to tell the wife of a surgeon who put her on hydroxychloroquine as an outpatient for a mild cough, and no confirmation of COVID-19 could be the reason she's having new onset palpitations. These are the types of situations I cringe to be involved in. Caring for physicians directly, we tend to do a lot less than the public seeks for itself. We understand the futility of many interventions. We tend to understand that more care isn't always better care. We are however able to quickly process and work up clusters of symptoms that could be serious. As one would expect, our precision in using resources is far better. I'm not a doctor. but I'm a lawyer who has sought the services of other lawyers. I would imagine that, unless the doctor has their exact specialty, they listen to what he says and wouldn't second guess. At least that's what I do with other lawyers. The law is extremely broad, and unless you specialize in a particular area you probably know next to nothing about it compared to the person you're talking to. I assume medicine is the same way. I'm a junior doctor in a small town. It's a little awkward as I know most of the doctors, and the ones I don't are often married to ones that I do know. I'm currently working in the same practice as my GP. If I needed anything particularly personal I would probably go to the next closest town. Although I have friends from med school who work there too. I bring a printout of my medical history and hand it to them to save time. They always say, "Wow. Thanks. Okay. What do you want?" "I need a recipe for this amount of insulin for my diabetes." "Do I need a referral to anything?" "Podiatry, no patient refuses podiatry referral." "Extensively cancelled." Then we shoot the shit. Why do they try to send you to podiatry? Diabetes can cause problems in your feet, often due to poor circulation. In some cases, it is safer to refer the patient to podiatry for something like clipping toenails, so the patient doesn't accidentally cut themselves, which can result in an infection and more issues. Doctors make the worst patients. My so is one, and it took me months to convince him he had a depressive episode. Likewise, I'm a med student and never remember to take my meds. I have a weird schedule. Okay. I'm generally patient if they're running behind, because I know how busy things get. I try to bring a list if I have concerns, so I don't waste a lot of time. I think it goes quicker than for non-doctors, since stuff doesn't take as much explaining. Female US attending physician here. I did telehealth with the dermatologist yesterday, as I have a dark black mole that's growing rapidly. They asked why do you request this appointment, and I said I need a biopsy. They didn't ask me what I do, or what my background is. Talked down to me, and called me dear. Wouldn't let me get a word in edgewise. I shut up, and let them hang themselves. 20 minutes later they say, "Well, dear, it seems you need to come in and have a biopsy." Aha. I'm not a doctor, but an occupational therapist. I work closely with a doctor who does tendon repairs and nerve repairs / releases. When I started having symptoms I shot him an email saying, "Hey, these are my symptoms. These are the provocative tests. Would you be okay being my doctor?" He agreed and got me in as soon as possible. On the Evil he sent his med student in first. I heard him at the door. I laid out my symptoms and the med student essentially brushed me off and said, "Do you know how rare that would be?" He went outside and gave the report to the doctor, who had been listening, and doc said she's right, but he was awesome, did the tests, listened, etc. When it came to the surgery he was super cool, walked me through all the details he knew I wanted, and after has been amazing with my recovery. He told me his basic restrictions and the timelines for strengthening etc, and told me he trusts my clinical judgment and to just email him. He said he knew that if I felt that something was wrong to come back. He's been super chill and shoots me an email. I requested extended medical leave and he had no problem. He trusted my judgment. He's rad. A lot of waiting time. Not a doctor, but my dad was. They don't go. Doctors hate to go to the physician. My dad would never go to get checked. We used to live in different cities. And 5 years ago he came for my birthday, November, and I was concerned he had lost so much weight. My dad visited my brother in the US for Christmas, and it was very difficult for me to reach him. He wouldn't pick up the phone or return my text messages. A few days before New Year's Eve he called me and told me he was sick. He had cancer. My brother went to the airport to pick him up, and dad was in a wheelchair. None of his children knew he was sick. It turned out that he had been feeling bad and even passed out at work, and he didn't want to go to the doctor. One of his employees took him and even threatened to talk to his children if he didn't do it. He said his doctor recommended to go visit my brother because the treatment wasn't available in our country. Government doesn't care or provide medicines and the health system sucks. My brother and sister spent the holidays taking care of him. When he returned I went to visit him and stayed 2 weeks with him. My brother got him a nurse, and the guys that worked with my dad at my brother's business took care of him while I went back home to my husband and 5Y kid. 2 weeks later my brother called me crying because my dad was dying. I flew back to my dad, got there at night, and he was gone in the morning. Please doctors, do take care of your health. Your loved ones deserve it. If my dad had gone to get his checkups he would have found earlier and could have an opportunity to beat cancer. As an imaging tech I've done scans on a few doctors and they are the worst. The one that I remember the most was a surgeon who kept contaminating where we were gonna put the fourth by touching it after we wiped it with an alcohol swab. Not a doctor but a nurse. I'm always reluctant to share that as my specialty is mental health, not medical. I don't want doctors/nurses to assume I know a lot more than I do. I'm also fearful that I will be avoided more during a hospital stay. My husband is in and out of hospitals. Everyone knows that I'm a nurse. It's in the record. It's part of handover because I don't volunteer that info. Now a few years ago, I was admitted to hospital and back on the ward. Post surgery I wanted to go to the loo, but I was hooked up to these IV drips on both sides. I buzzed for a nurse and she said she would bring a pan. I said I don't want a pan. She left to get a pan. On return, I said I want to use the loo. She said that the doctor wrote in the notes that I'm only to use a pan. I said I'm a registered nurse and I would love to see that entry because I have never heard of a doctor caring about how someone opens their bowels. She near shit herself. And I got to use the loo. So maybe there is an advantage to speaking up. I imagine it's weird back and forth straight to the point in under 2 minutes. Followed by correctly ordering what the doctor wrote down for you unassisted. Hey, thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.